Good afternoon, class. Today we're going to look at two very important features on our TI-84 graphing calculator that are going to help us navigate through this whole domain and range concept. The first one is the Windows key, and the second one is the table key. So the first thing we need to do is turn our calculator on. And as we know from previous tutorials, we want to reset it back to the factory positions. So we do that by hitting second plus 7 2 2. Now we are back to our factory settings. So if we go up here to window, guys, you can think of the windows as what your graph would look like if you were drawing it on paper. On this one, your X scale would go from -10 to +10 by ones. Your Y minimum would be -10 to +10 by ones also. So if we were going to graph something, let's say we're going to graph this equation, 7.5x, and we hit graph. Remember that the variable key is right here from previous tutorials. And once again, we hit graph, and we'll get that line. But now what if we're talking about a real world problem like we've been talking about in class, say the avalanche tickets. An avalanche ticket's costing $7.50 a piece. Well, our independent variable is going to be number of tickets. Our dependent variable will be cost. So if we're talking about a real world problem, of course, we don't need negative tickets, and we won't use negative money. So all we really need is quadrant 1. So to get a better picture of that real world situation, we go back to our window key and we can reset our window. Well, if you think about quadrant 1, the X minimum is going to be 0. We can keep that X max at 10 for right now. Scale of 1 would be great. Y minimum, which is the cost, would also be 0. Let's bump this Y max up to about $100. Now, if we keep our Y scale at 1, our graph is going to be very compressed and tiny and difficult to see. We want to see the big picture. So let's just change that scale to 5. Now we go back and we hit graph, and notice that this now graphs our real world situation. This is what we can see. This is what our problem would look like. And let's say we want to know how much 8 tickets cost. Well, we can use our little arrow key here, and we can try to find where X is 8 and see how much it would cost. But as you can see, that's very tedious, and it's very difficult to get to 8. That's where the table feature comes in handy. So notice the table is blue. We know from previous tutorials that for blue, we hit the second key and we hit table. Now we can see how much each ticket cost. 0 tickets, 1 ticket, 2 tickets, and so on. Well, let's say that we had a group that wanted to buy 250 avalanche tickets. Well, for us to go through and go to 250, that's going to take a lot of work. So there's another important feature on this, which is the table set. Notice that it's also in blue. We can go second, table set, and now we can start our table wherever we would like. So if we want to know how much 250 tickets would cost, hit the 250, go back to table, and there it shows up. 250 tickets would cost $1,875. So let's talk a little bit about domain and range. So let's go back and reset our window to the factory settings of -10, 1, -10, 10, 1, and -10, 10, 1, and look at what that graph would look like. So this is the rule. That line determines the rule of our situation. So the rule says that the domain, by looking at that line, is all real numbers, and the range is all real numbers. However, when we go to the situation and we change our window setting, in the real world situation, our domain and range change. The domain would be 1, 2, 3, ... all positive integers, and the range would be 7.5, 0, 7.5, 15, ... 7.5x. And that is very easy to see when you bring up your table. So if we bring up our table, you can see that your domain 0, 1, 2, 3, ... your range 0, 7.5, 15, 22.5, and so on. Once again, a very valuable, powerful tool to use in all mathematics, but definitely with domain and range. We'll investigate